My name is Ellie Bowen. I'm a senior at the University of South Carolina, and I'm getting ready to graduate in just a couple of weeks. But before I leave, there are some stories that I want to make sure are told. And they're not my own. Instead, I want to tell the story about the legends that haunt the very place that I've called home for the past 4 years. I want to make sure that all of these ghost stories that make the university culture exactly what it is are captured in a way that can be listened to and passed down so that way these traditions continue long after I'm gone. Welcome to Haunted Carolina, where legends run free. The first story I'll tell you is a personal favorite, and it's the legend of the Third Eye Man. On November 12, 1949, Christopher Nichols, a USC student, saw a man enter the sewer manhole outside of the Longstreet Theater. Now, Christopher Nichols wasn't just a regular student, he wrote for the student newspaper, so he published his experience in the Daily Gamecock and ended up calling him the Sewer Man. Word around campus started to spread about this mysterious man who was climbing into the sewers. Less than a year later, a campus police officer saw him. The USC PD officer shined a flashlight and saw scattered chicken remains around the loading dock of the Longstreet Theater. And what he saw, when he really looked a little bit closer, was a strange-looking man hunched over mutilated chicken remains. Some even say that he was eating live chickens. He was described as having grotesque and distorted features, and even had a small third eye on the center of his forehead. The strangest part about him, though, was the fact that his skin was also silver. This story spread like wildfire, and in the late 60s to early 70s, social fraternities ended up taking pledges into the catacombs underneath the city to find the Third Eye Man. Pledges gave reports of a grotesque silver creature with a third eye in the center of its forehead, charging after them with a lead pipe. Now, obviously, Campus PD heard about this and was a little bit concerned about the possibility of some sort of creature living underneath the school and attacking students. Investigations were made by the City of Columbia and by the campus police department, but ultimately, no creature was found. Even still, the university decided that it would be better off shutting down all access points to the catacombs below the university, therefore trapping the legend of the Third Eye Man. Currently, there's no way to access the catacombs below USC. But one has to ask himself, what happened to the creature? Is the Third Eye Man still down there, waiting for his next victim? One of the crazier parts about the story is that the tunnels underneath Columbia actually exist. There is a labyrinth of tunnels located below the city of Columbia that have been described as having cypress floors, Confederate gold, and beautifully crafted brick arches. They're large enough to drive a carriage or a wagon through. But what's really strange is that there's no official record of them ever being built, nor any record of what they're supposed to be used for. The reason they were built is up for speculation. Some people say that it could have been part of the Underground Railroad. Others say it could have been a passage government officials used to get around in secret. There are those who suggest that soldiers could have used it as an escape route during the Civil War. Whatever the reason, they're down there, and legends surround their very existence. Some say there are still entrances to the catacombs by the canals, or at the State House, or even at the State Museum. Rumor has it that one of the oldest graves in Columbia has an entrance to the catacombs underneath its coffin. Either way, the tunnels don't sound like a very pleasant experience, and so I would personally strongly recommend not looking into exploring them yourself. While the original use may be unknown, the tunnels are currently used as a way to drain stormwater. It's not worth risking the legal consequences or the consequences of running into the Third Eye Man himself. I knew that there had to be more to the story, but I wasn't quite sure where to begin. I stumbled across an old newscast called Hidden Columbia, where a journalist actually went into the tunnels. When I did a little bit more digging, I found out that that journalist was currently a professor at my university. I had a chance to sit down with Professor Burns and talk about his experiences in the tunnels.
So the tunnels have the legend of the Third Eye Man. Have you heard that one?
Yeah, I have heard the Third Eye Man. But I also, from what I understood, the Third Eye Man was more in the steam tunnels under USC's campus.
Yes.
That's what I had heard.
Yes.
And the funny thing about the steam tunnels is I had a lot of people, after they saw the story about the other tunnels, under the city.
Oh.
I'm like, what? Go under the USC steam tunnels. And I had a coworker that said when she was at USC, back when the dorms were single sex and it was after hour, she would go down into the tunnels.
Oh my
go
gosh.
through them and go up to her boyfriend's dorm. Like, that's what they all did. It was very common. This is what she's telling me. Yes, as a colleague of mine.
Wow.
And I was like, that is so cool. I want to go in.
Yeah.
So I contacted, all the people at USC, all appropriate, and I mean, shot down so hard.
I bet.
And I get it. As a journalist, you hate hearing no and all that. But when I thought about it, they actually are steam tunnels. Mm-hmm. You go down there, you could get burned you can get major injury. Plus, I don't imagine that the maintenance crew wants students running around in those tunnels.
It makes sense.
It does make sense. So they wouldn't give me anything. But the best tunnels, of course, were the ones down the city, because those were old and beautiful archways and those wooden floors that had been preserved since the 1850s. Those are the tunnels. That was the first tunnel. Like, hey, people say there are secret tunnels under the city. Ha, ha, ha. Oh, my gosh, we found them. They really are. We entered by the bandstand down at Riverfront Park.
Okay.
There's this big, huge archway. It looks like it's just like a drainage tunnel, I guess, for all the stuff in the city to wash out to the river. But when you actually go in it, you realize it's not just some tunnel. It is this beautiful work of art and has these gorgeous rock archways. And it's brick inside. And then the floors are wooden.
Whoa. And
they have been there since the whenever those things were built.
Oh my gosh.
Like 1850s, I don't know, 1830s. It was hard to find out because there's so many rumors. The floors were and still are perfectly preserved wood floors, and there's water running constantly, like maybe 2 or 3 inches of water running.
Oh my gosh.
And I was with 2 other USC professors at the time when we went in. I was like, how are these floors not rotted away? And one of them said, well, it's always underwater. It's being preserved. I don't really know how that works, but these things were preserved.
Wow.
And the stalactites were hanging down, or lights, whichever one it is, hanging down. So we walked up under into those for a while. It starts to get really hot, really fast under there. And then I'll never forget one of the guys that took us there. He goes, now when I came down here like 20 years ago, we found a manhole and we popped up and we ended up in the exercise yard of the old CCI prison.
Wow.
So he's like, I pop up out of the manhole and I was like, holy bad word, I am in the CCI exercise prison yard.
Oh man.
So he drops back down under there, tells this great story about that. Then they took us, he and the other person took me, and they said there's another entrance that was even bigger behind Colonial Life Arena. And you can still see the rock archway from a tunnel entrance. And it's all been filled in, so you can only see the very top of the archway. Mm-hmm. But they were telling 20 years ago, before Colonial Life Arena was built and they filled all this in, they said you could have driven a giant van in here.
Wow.
Or a carriage, I think is what they said. These beautiful arches and wooden floors.
What do you think that one was built for?
I think they were built for drainage. I really do. Okay. I don't think there was anything usually the simplest answer is the right answer. Mm-hmm. And it'd be neat to say there are all these Confederate, escape from the State House and all that. But,
yeah.
I think it was just drainage. Back then they built things really well. Ghost stories and monster stories will never ever go away. We all love to be part of something. And I've seen the ghost. Is that, right? It's part of that. I've seen something you haven't.
I was also able to reach out to Claire from Barstool Chicks. She's a close friend who runs the University of South Carolina Barstool Chicks Twitter, and while she speaks only on behalf of herself and not on behalf of her company, she did have some pretty interesting insights to share. Well, over winter break, you had this story come up, and it really caught a lot of people's attention. It was a Twitter thread explaining the legend of the Third Eye Man and the Catacombs under Columbia. Like, if you went to, USC in the 60s and the 70s, you definitely knew what was going on with the Third Eye Man.
Yeah, definitely. And I felt like no one had, really mentioned the Third Eye Man or, mentioned the Catacombs when I was in school as a student. Yeah, I just kind of was I want to make a thread out of this because Twitter threads are, what's in. And, I think it was, 9 or 10 tweets. And all of the response has been overwhelmingly positive. Okay. I would say, no one's gonna be no, this isn't true, ha ha ha. The Third Eye Man has a burner account. No,
Imagine somebody making, a Third Eye Man burner account.
This isn't true.
So, how did people react to this story? Because I know for a lot of people, just for reference, this is, the class of 2021 that's about to graduate. So, so many people I feel haven't heard this story before and might not have heard it before at Barstool.
Yeah. So, from the students, it's been, mostly positive. Our then student body president, Izzy Rushton, actually retweeted it from her student government account.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because she thought it was super cool. And then not only did we get positive feedback from the students, there were older people, middle-aged, 40 to 50-year-olds, chiming in, oh, I remember one time, we would just get drunk in the catacombs.
Oh my gosh.
There used to be, nightlife down there.
Yeah. Columbia Down Under.
Yeah, which sounds like it should be Australia.
I know.
Who came up with this?
Yeah.
But yeah, they were just sharing stories and stuff, and then there was this guy who was oh yeah, they took us into the tunnels at the State House, when I was a Boy Scout.
Well, Claire, do you have any final takeaways that you want the people to know about your experience with the Third Eye Man?
I've never had an experience with Third Eye Man. Just don't go into the sewers. I don't want to have an experience with a Third Eye Man.
I have no interest in having any kind of experience with him. Well, Claire, thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate your input. And definitely check out the Barstool Chicks account for USC on both Instagram and Twitter. So, what is the truth to this story? The tunnels really exist, but does the Third Eye Man run through them? If the Third Eye Man truly existed, he was probably an outcast of society in need of help, not vilification. And if he is truly a monster-like creature, there's little the university can do to protect us beyond sealing the tunnels. One thing is certain, the legend of the Third Eye Man is here to stay. It's one of those stories that makes our campus so unique. So next time you find yourself walking past the Longstreet Theater late at night, be sure you check over your shoulder. You never know, you just might catch a glimpse of the Third Eye Man himself.